That's a face I haven't seen in a while.
Lucky you.
Lucky me indeed. How are you?
Today has been the worst day in the last 6 months. It has been a day, man. We had an outage that lasted about 30 hours, and my team caused it, and it's been a servant leadership kind of day.
Go team, man. Go team. Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, it's really not your fault. It's my fault.
That's right. It's my fault for trusting you. Added a new slide to my servant leadership presentation. How to call somebody bad names without them realizing you're calling them bad names. It's my fault. It's not your fault. Trust me.
I think I could do a whole topic on that.
Oh man.
Right. It's not me, it's you.
Right.
Oh man. It is good to see you though, man. You look good.
Good to see you too, man.
You look good. You don't look like a 30-hour outage at the moment.
Well,
Must be the moisturizer.
It's coffee.
Coffee. Right. That's good. Hey, Charles. How you doing?
Hey, there we go. Got my sound on. Good to see y'all.
Good to see
You too, man. You too. Your view's not as impressive at night, by the way.
Yeah, kind of dark outside. We got some weather coming in Louisiana, don't we?
I know, man. I know. They canceled all the schools out here, all the public schools out here, which means I got to work from home tomorrow.
I'm supposed to be traveling early in the morning for a company Christmas party, and I kind of let them know. I was like, okay, that may or may not be happening, just depending upon how it is in the morning from Lafayette to Baton Rouge. So,
yeah. Tomorrow, I guess it's looking kind of rough. I hadn't paid that much attention to it until I saw they were talking about canceling schools. I'm like, great. But at least we'll have cool weather that follows it, which will be nice. Do they really?
Yeah, Baton Rouge, public and private schools. So everybody canceled.
Oh, wow.
Boy.
They must be serious about this stuff. Yeah, must be bad.
And not to
So
play
you're out like Charles too, my Charles.
Didn't we used to go to school when it was raining?
One moment.
Yeah.
So
we rode the bus too.
You have a roof on the bus to keep it from getting wet. Yeah, all that's.
You'd step off the bus into about a foot of water, and then you have to go through the rest of your day like that. Like water up to your knees, mud, just wet shoes. And it didn't really matter.
And parents did not care.
That's right.
No, you get yelled at for dirtying up your brand new shoes. Like, what did you do to your school shoes?
Well, curiosity question, Bill, how long did you and Jared work together for?
Calendar wise, a couple years off my life. 20.
Yes.
Okay.
You'll never get those minutes back at the end of your life.
Never gonna recover that time. No, I guess it was about 2 years, Jared?
Yeah. Couple years, good years too. We had a lot of fun. We broke some things.
Everybody else on the call who knows Jared is like, oh my God, 2 years with this cat every day. Every day I would go to work and he was just there.
Well, there virtually or physically, but definitely there.
Well, either you were there or the remnants of the crap you did the day before was evident, and I had to deal with that.
The remains of the previous day.
There were bodies everywhere. It was a big mess.
Blood in the hallways. It was a real mess. But Service Master made a bundle off of me arriving there.
Cats and dogs living in harmony. It was anarchy.
Full chaos.
See, we're already getting a taste of the in-depth and irreverent leadership. When
Come on, if you don't know Cats and Dogs Living in Harmony, you're not allowed to stay on this call. You don't know Ghostbusters references, you can't stay.
Ghostbusters, yes. Cats and dogs living together. It's total chaos.
They actually have that out in Lafayette too.
Irreverent.
I think they've got like a group that goes out and emulates the Ghostbusters in Lafayette. Isn't that a thing, Jared? Have you seen that?
I've seen the
Okay.
car. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like a little like Subaru SUV they've got all done up as the Ghostbusters car. It's really cool.
I think they pull it
It's
out
really
for even
cool.
other events outside of Halloween too, which is great. So,
Yes.
They didn't buy that
Yeah.
car for 1 day a year.
Mm. Yeah, man, they do that. But yeah, Bill and I, we had I had the privilege of working with Bill. Bill unfortunately had to deal with me for a couple of years at GDS. But I mean, we had a great time, and yes, I don't remember if Irreverent was in Bill's verbiage or if you might have put that in there, Tanya, but it was
oh no,
perfect.
that was all
It was
him. I didn't
perfect.
modify. Like,
And Bill and I have that in common. I think that's why Bill and I have always gotten along really well. Is yes, very. We very much kind of see what's around us for what it is, and sometimes those are just the rules of the game you play. But it's okay very often actually to sort of call a spade. Recognize the game we're playing for what it is and just talk about it as such, right?
and it looks like or Dean is calling you out, Bill, for the happy birthday too. I saw that on LinkedIn this morning, that Dean knows that from a while. of working
Hey,
with you
Bill,
too.
welcome.
Happy birthday.
So,
Appreciate it. Worst birthday ever.
Happy
so far.
birthday,
I'm
man.
hoping it gets better as we go today. We're not been the best day yet, so hopefully we're on an upswing here.
Why is it not
Hey,
been the
look,
best
a
day, Bill? What's
30-hour
up?
outage.
Oh, hey, Dean.
Hey.
Nothing, just a delivery team following through on their commitments, maybe die an early death. That's all.
Yeah.
Nothing new.
My daughter mentioned to me that you share a birthday with Taylor Swift, so you've got that going for you.
Swell. Now I feel so much better.
You were born on Swift Day? Oh my
Swift.
gosh.
Taylor Swift could be sitting in this room and I wouldn't know who she was.
actually, heard she.
And I'm alone in the
moved to
room.
Louisiana recently. I read that somewhere that she was at Preservation Hall and nobody knew who she was, except the news reporters apparently.
So we share that in common too.
Yeah, nobody knows who you are. Yeah, mine's not much better. Mine's Liza Minnelli, so my celebrity who shares my birthday.
Judy Garland had a baby on your birthday. That's something.
Yeah, how about that?
That's something.
Well, I was born
Gosh,
on
you were
13th,
just
and my
a
initials are
little
BS.
off of the right place at the right time, right? Born at the right time, just not the right place to be a celebrity kid.
I don't know if that's such a good thing, being a celebrity kid.
I know. I mean, you could be like Taylor Swift, sit in the same room as Bill Starrett. Doesn't even know who she is.
When she joins meetings, they tell her that. They're like, you have the same birthday as Bill Starrett. And she knows who I am the same amount that I know who she is.
Like, I've heard about this Bill guy.
Yeah.
I don't even know what he looks like.
Some LinkedIn idiot. Yep.
I
wanted to say thank you to everybody, and Bill, for joining us tonight, and just everybody that's kind of joining us in this beginning part. I know this is your first one with us. We usually give it a couple of minutes for everybody to join. We had about 140 people that signed up online, and we've been tracking about 50 to 60% that joined the night of. So either way, this is going to be pretty well attended. So, but
we're at 3 pages. We're
at 3 pages of Zoom, yeah.
We're at 3 pages of people.
I'll take care of
worse. You can do worse.
How many are still here when we're done?
We haven't been
That's the real
tracking
message,
that.
right?
So that's one thing when I go over the records, it's like I don't look at that so much, but maybe we can get to that at one point.
We'll have a good time. Hopefully everybody can take away at least one thing that either they want to do or want to do the opposite of. One of the lessons that I talk about through this process is learning from people who do things poorly. You can learn from them sometimes more than you can learn from people who do things well. And at least the lessons can be, more direct. And so if we take away from this, wow, I don't want to be anything like that guy, we're still doing okay, right? You still narrowed down the focus a little bit. So we'll be all right. See, and that's the whole don't take yourself too seriously lesson, because I don't know what the heck I'm talking about. I just talk about what's worked for me, and hopefully it works for others at some point.
Okay, right. Hey, let me also, I want to call attention to Jonathan, who just jumped on. Hey, Jonathan. I was hoping you'd join us for our little mini reunion.
Hey, what's going on? Hey, Bill. Hey,
dog.
Dean.
Welcome, Jonathan.
Hey, we're getting the band back together.
Yes, yes, we're on a mission from God.
For the Hell Freezes Over tour.
Yes.
Awesome. Jared's the last one to lose his hair in the group. Can't wait.
Mm-hmm.
Can't wait. We're getting there.
No. No. Still solid. It's gonna turn a different shade of this though soon enough. But yeah, still got it. Still rocking. We'll see how long that lasts. But yeah, you're right. A few more 30-hour outages, and it's sure to be.
Tanya, is my audio okay?
Yeah, your audio is good. So we're going to go ahead and get kicked off in a couple of minutes. So was looking at kind of what I jotted down, just for people too, letting them know that our last in-person is going to be this Thursday at Texas Day Brazil. So we've still got a couple of spots open on that. We had to limit the room just due to the restaurant seating capacity. So if there's those of you that are still wanting to join us for that, the registration is still out on the page. And we've got some of the events for January already being planned. And in the spirit of that too, we recently did have our elections. So I'd like to introduce Shala Canifax, who's going to be our new VP of Professional Development going into 2023 and 2025. And then Corey Ward is going to be our incoming VP of Finance. So there's going to be more opportunities to meet them and more introductions on that coming soon as well. But I did want to go ahead and announce those results. And this recording too of this, should be out on the website, most likely by the end of this week. We've got a little bit of a hectic week with the volunteer board with 2 events this week. So just a lot for a little bit of time on that. So, and with that, I'd like to turn it over to Jared, who's our current VP of Programs. Introduce Bill.
Current VP of Programs.
Current,
yeah.
Yes. VP of Programs.
Outgoing, soon to be recovering VP of Programs. Yes, thank you. Thanks everyone for joining us this evening. Very much appreciated. Really excited to introduce tonight's speaker. For those of you who've been on for a minute, you can tell Bill and I have got some rapport built. We were fortunate enough to work together at Global Data Systems. Bill and I share a few things in addition to certain attitudes and approaches to what good looks like. We also share an alma mater, the MBA program at UL Lafayette. But working with Bill was an absolute pleasure. Bill has a great approach to servant leadership. Bill has a great approach to leading his teams, to demonstrating what good looks like, right? And very much a realistic, but a customer focused approach. I really enjoyed that about our time together. So Bill's topic tonight is going to be servant leadership, right? He's going to share some of his experiences, some of his approaches, some of his thoughts on this topic. I've been looking forward to this for a while. Bill, happy birthday. I hope that the rest of your birthday goes better than the outage you've been working with your team on today. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
All right, well, thanks. Yeah, interesting birthday. Maybe we'll cover a little bit about that later. So guys, my name is Bill Starrett. This is going to be very informal. The reason that I am excited to be here, the reason that I do these talks is because I believe strongly in the concept of servant leadership. I have some philosophies on things that might be a little different than maybe you're accustomed to, and I will be a little irreverent. I will try not to say offensive language, but I might not take this as seriously sometimes as some others, because I believe you can find a lot more joy in things that you're having fun at versus things that feel like work. So the reason we're talking today is I want to tell you some concepts. I want to tell you some stories. And my hope is that the people who report through you, or the people who see you as a leader, even if they don't report through you, lives can be improved because maybe I helped you become a better leader through this. Not that I'm an expert at anything. Part of my bio that I give out is, I can speak as an authority on a lot of things because I've made a lot of mistakes over the years, and that allows me to speak from a position of authority in the negative. Don't do this. I'm not really sure how to do it, but don't do this because this hurts, or this doesn't work, or I tried this 7 times and it failed 7 times. So we'll go through kind of who I am a little bit. We'll talk about why we're here. We'll talk about why I think servant leadership is so important, what it is, what it isn't, what's the good about it, the bad, the ugly, a couple of how to be successful in this space, a couple of suggestions, maybe a funny story or two, and then I'll open the floor for discussion because my goal here is to learn more than I teach, right? So one of my philosophies is shut up as often as possible, right? Because everything that's going to come out of my mouth, I already know. You guys are the ones that can teach me. So hopefully at the end we can stop and talk a little bit. So I will ask if there's any one person who can turn on their camera, and Jared, I'm even okay if it's you. I can't stand talking to a picture of myself. Thank you. I need somebody to look at that's not me. Thank you.
That makes sense. I kind of hear the theory sometimes that it's respectful to turn it off. So I go in between them, but
no, it's fine.
I appreciate you even asking.
Yeah, I'm talking to a little.
I'm trying not to draw too much attention from you, Bill. I usually kind of.
Okay, so who am I and why am I here? So my name is Bill Starrett. I call myself a servant leader. I call myself a part-time author. I have learned that writing a novel, a fiction novel, is harder than you could have ever convinced me to do it. It's extremely difficult. I've been around the block a bunch of times. I've been all around the world, made a lot of mistakes over the years, learned some valuable lessons through pain association therapy. Hope to help you avoid some of that. I was in the Navy for 9 years. I got to see some cool places. Thankfully, never got shot at, but have some pride in that background. I'm also a college baseball umpire. One of the things that you'll find me talking about way too much, and if you ask Dean or Jonathan or Jared, they'll agree, is how baseball relates to life and how officiating baseball has taught me a lot about being a manager and a lot about human nature and social interaction. I'm a mediocre softball coach. I coach my daughter and her friends in girls softball, and we win a lot, but I like to say it's because of the girls, not because of me. Don't know what they would say, but we have a great time. And I do a little resume review on the side as well. My daughter and I have a little side business where we do some resume reviews with the intent of helping people, not with the intent of making a bunch of money. So as folks, experience layoffs or experience a change in job status, we try to help them by creating some more ATS-centric and recruiter-centric resumes for them. So those are my hobbies, and that's kind of who I am in my past. And I'm just going to flow through this, guys. So if there's something that I say or mention that you'd like to me to stop and talk more about, please just let me know. I don't really have much of an agenda. I do have some scripts that I follow, but I do have some ground rules with regard to how we're going to interact. So the number one ground rule that I try to follow is a willingness to learn. If I'm here to tell you why I'm right, and you should just listen to me and do what I say, that's not a learning environment. So open mind, willingness to learn. Stupid questions are always encouraged. Please ask the one question that you're afraid to ask is the one that 7 other people in the room probably have. And when you ask it, they'll be relieved and then they'll learn something as well. It's a safe space. Now you'll notice this is a recurring theme throughout everything that we talk about tonight. Is everything has to be a safe space. Everything is collaborative. Everything is cooperative until it's time to not be. But one of my recurring themes is anytime we're in a conversation, it's a safe space. We'll be respectful to each other, but we're going to be honest and we're going to exchange information that way. No, I know I'm intentionally not sharing content, guys. I don't like PowerPoints. I just try to speak from what the information that I want to get out. So open minds in both directions, one of my themes as well. I'm going to learn from you, you're going to learn from me. And then again, my agenda, which is only in my head, is just a guideline. If we get off on a rabbit trail and we're talking about something important or interesting, I'm great with that as well. Good. So we'll go over the definition of servant leadership. I don't really care about the industry definition. I'll tell you what I think it is. We'll talk about why and how, pros and cons. I'll tell you 2 stories, one of which is a great story, and one of which is not the the easiest story in the world, but it's it's a learning experience. And then we'll go from there. Any questions, comments? Bill, you're doing a terrible job. Anything? All right. Jared.
So far,
Hey,
so good.
Tanya, I'm gonna need you to go ahead and mute Jared in some sort of irrevocable process that he can't undo without some sort of other permission. So guys, let's talk about, I guess I would assume most folks on the call are managers at some level, whether you're project managers and you're managing indirect resources, or you're managing direct reports, or direct and indirect organization. There are some truths about being a manager that I learned over the years that was hard for me to learn, right? When I joined the Navy, I was thrust into a leadership position. I had no business being there, didn't enjoy it, wasn't good at it. If imagine a 22-year-old E5 in the Navy managing a bunch of 22-year-old E5s, and none of us has any idea what we're doing. But when I got out of the Navy, I always wanted to get back into leadership and get back into management. And I thought it was because managing was going to be a certain way, right? There's certain things about your manager that you think they go through, you think the benefits that they have. And the truths are often a little different than reality. So the first bullet that I have when I talk about management is the authority that you have as a manager, right? Everyone has somebody that reports to them, whether it's directly, indirectly, officially, unofficially, solid line, dotted line, meshed organization. Everybody has somebody that reports to them, or they have someone who's a peer or a superior who sees them as a leader. Here's the reality: all authority in any organization is imaginary. Your authority over the people who report to you is made up. It's fake. And if you don't think that's the case, resign and tell your people that you quit. And your replacement is, I'm gonna pick somebody, your replacement is Stephen Naylor. And Stephen Naylor's standing right next to you. How much authority do you have now over those people who reported to you over the last 2 years? None. Even though you're still in charge, even though you still hold the relationship, you still hold the position, your authority has evaporated because it didn't actually exist in the first place. The only real management power you have is your ability to influence the behavior of others. And servant leadership, to me, is the best way to do that in a way that helps them and also facilitates advancement and success on your part. So that's why we're here. It's not altruistic. I'm not going to jump on here and say everybody should just treat each other like, their best friend and always be nice and never have conflict. I would never say that. What I'm telling you is, if you treat your people like humans and you develop your authority through respect and through, mutual cooperation and collaboration, now you have authority, because now they'll follow you even if they don't have to. So if you do get demoted, or if you do get your team taken away and you go do an individual contributor role, those people will still see you as leaders because you are one instead of somebody bequeathing it upon you. So lesson one, if you're managing your people through the authority that somebody else has given you, because they also have imaginary authority to give you imaginary authority, you're not doing a good job as a manager, or you might not be. The second truth is, managing people is the hardest job in the world. And you guys are project managers. You probably have it worse than most because you actually don't have authority. You have accountability to the project, to budget, to timelines and the Gantt chart, but you do not have direct, hire fire responsibility or accountability or authority over those people. So you have to be a servant leader in order to get them to follow you because you lack the stick, right? They didn't give you a stick. They told you to go manage these resources, but they don't actually report to you, and they can tell you to go jump in the lake if they really want to. So these skills will probably be helpful. Being a manager is not glamorous. Everybody sees the guy in the corner office, and he drives the Jared, what's that thing you drive? Some kind of Hot Wheels car Jared drives. You drive like a fancy car to the office, nice clothes, sits in the corner office staring out the window, and everybody thinks that's his job. That's not his job. His job is 6 weeks of budget conference meetings at the end of every year and somebody telling him to magic $1 million out of nowhere. And if he can't, he's going to have to lay off 15 people at the first of the year right after Christmas. Managing is not glamorous. It is a grind. It is a thankless job in many cases, especially when you try to be a servant leader because people don't know what that means. So anyway, it's not glamorous. The other truth is, if people think it's easy, and if it's so easy, why are so many people so bad at it? Right? Every one of us on this call, I don't know how many people are here, 75 people are here. Every one of us has had a manager that we can say their name out loud right now that we could not stand. They were terrible at being a manager, at being a leader. So if it's so easy, why do so many people suck at it so bad? Well, the reason is they follow formulas that don't make sense, that don't work anymore, especially in today's society. And here's another truth, and this one's accompanied by a little bit of a story. And Jonathan and Jared and Dean, I apologize in advance since you guys were all part of this. But so as leaders, especially as we go up in an organization, and I consider myself at a fairly elevated position today at my company. We tend to overestimate our importance to the outcome, right? What would they do without me? They can't live without me, or I hope they can't live without me, or let me figure out how to way to make it so they can't live without me. But overestimating your importance to the process is a big mistake because you lose humility, you lose a reference point with regard to how important you are to the process. So here's my story. 3 years ago, in 2 weeks, I'm sitting in my house on a Saturday morning. Best friend in the world, another close friend, the owner of our company's wife and only son, and another friend, and Carly McCord boarded a plane. And my friend on the plane, by the way, was the VP of Ops. We also had our VP of Sales on board this plane. Took off to go to an LSU game, flew for 48 seconds and crashed and killed everybody on board, except for our VP of Sales, who was burned and subsequently was in the hospital and never did actually return to work. So think about that. 70% of the owner of the company who just lost his only child and his wife, so he's off the grid, right? He's going to go mourn. He's out. The VP of Sales and the VP of Ops, all off the grid in a $50 million or $35 million company in a span of 48 seconds. So I get a call, and it's one of the guys that I work with, and word has started to spread that the private plane that we owned as a company has crashed. So that was about 8:30 on a Saturday morning, December 29th. 8:30 in the morning. It's a 2.5 hour drive from my house to Lafayette. I'm actually from Baton Rouge, but I live in New Orleans. And I drove to the office, and it was one of the most emotional days I've ever had. One of the most traumatic from an instant tragedy standpoint. And I ended up at a hotel that night that I'd stayed in many, many times. And one of the other guys that I work with, who's actually not on the call, called me, and he said, "Where are you?" And I said, "I'm at the hotel." And he said, "Which one?" And I did not know. I was sitting in the middle of the bed, no idea what hotel I was at. So I had to walk downstairs, ask the lady what hotel I was at, which she probably, thought I was drinking or something, but because I was so distraught. And we went out drinking, which was, again, probably not the best idea. We went out drinking, you know, celebrating the life of a couple of people we had just lost. But the lesson here is at 8 o'clock the following morning, 23 and a half hours after they died in a fiery plane crash, not a metaphor, an actual fiery plane crash. We were in the office, myself, one of the sales folks, the COO and the CIO, and we were handing out the work of the people who died. We were allocating their tasking to myself and to a gentleman named David and then to the CIO or CTO, 23 and a half hours after they died. The company never took a hit, right? We just kept on rolling. So anybody who thought they were irreplaceable in that process died in a fiery plane crash, and somebody else just inherited their work. So the reason I tell that story is not to put a damper on things, but it's to help people keep things in perspective. I don't care how many people report to you. I have 199 people on my team right now, directs and indirects, 199 people. If I quit today or died in a fiery plane crash, or Jared won the lottery and decided to share half of it with me, everything would continue. They might take a hit, but we have to keep this in perspective. We have to treat people the way they deserve to be treated. And we have to build our teams through building people up versus wielding some imaginary authority that can be taken away in a moment of tragedy or in a moment of somebody, you know, making a decision. So that's my story. Don't overestimate your importance to the process. Again, I hope that comes across the way that I mean it. I've actually never told that story on a meeting when other people were actually on the call that went through it with me, but Jonathan and Dean are both on the line, and they both were in the middle of that with me. So that's a real story. So we'll move on. We'll get a little happier past that point, hopefully. The last truth I'd like to throw out there is you cannot do it by yourself. I'm pretty good at what I do. No, my dad's calling me for my birthday. Sorry. I'm pretty good at what I do, but I have 199 people reporting to me because I need them. I could not do it without them. They log into servers. I couldn't log into a server right now. If you bet me $1,000, I couldn't log into a server. They do things that are hard. All I do is try to equip them and empower them, encourage them to be successful. So to me, the truth about you can't do it by yourself is why you need this concept, why this concept is so important. So doing okay? Everybody all right? That was a rough story. The next one's better.
I almost wanted to tell you to put your answer when your dad.
Yeah, he's probably mad at me for ignoring his call. He calls me once a year. This is the day. No, not really. My dad actually lives in Baton Rouge still. Okay, so let's talk about the why for a minute. Selfishly, servant leadership is good for you because it will make you more successful, or it can make you more successful. Any quality, effective management style has the opportunity and the potential to make you more successful. I believe this one is the right thing because it works. It has worked for me extensively. It will make you more successful as a leader because when your teams are more successful, if you work for appropriate leadership at your company, you will be seen as more successful. Mature leaders see their managers' success through the manager's teams, right? Not necessarily through the manager's measurability. The third truth is it's the right thing to do, or the why behind this. It's the right thing to do. Mistreating people, treating them as expendable, treating them as resources or cogs in the machine or disposable, that's just wrong, right? And in today's society, with the folks being brought up the way that they've been brought up in the last 30 years, it won't work. They won't let you do it. You treat them as expendable, they will see you as expendable, and then they're out the door for $1 or 50 cents, right? So it's the right thing to do. And the real reason here, the boiled down, is because humans deserve to be treated like humans. I'm not necessarily the easiest guy to work with. You can ask anybody on the phone that knows me. I'm kind of a hard ass when it comes to expectations and deliverables and commitments and timelines and things that the client's paying us a lot of money to do. I'm kind of a stickler for that kind of stuff. I expect a lot, but I will never not treat you like a human. I will never treat you as less than, right? So servant leaders don't treat people who are beneath them in an organization as less than, right? We treat them as humans. Good. All right, let's do some tactical stuff here. Since you're all PMs and you're all tactical and you all want tasking and step-by-step process, let's talk about this. I have 4 main methods for creating a servant-led organization. And I don't say to be a servant leader, I say to create a servant-led organization purposefully, because it's really not about you. If you focus on getting your team what they need to be successful, and you tell them honestly with eye contact that you care about their fulfillment at their job, they will follow you through the fire, right? If you do those things and you mean it and you do it with a clean heart and they can see it, and when they're vulnerable with you, you don't weaponize that vulnerability, they will follow you. And as PMs, again, when you don't have direct authority over your team, your resource pool, it's even more important to not treat them like pieces to throw into a Gantt chart to make dependencies flow, or we're going to crash the project and all we need is 6 more head count. Well, they're not head count, they're not resources, they're humans with dogs and problems and outages that last 30 hours on their birthday. So what are the steps, right? What are the tactical steps that you can take? The first step I take when I take over any team, and then periodically past that point, is I ask them 3 questions. First question is, what can I do to make you more successful? And they think, oh, bullshit, you don't mean it. That's just a checkbox that you're. No, I want you to be more successful there, Chuckles, because if you're more successful, I'm more successful. I win. I need the tight end to run the route and catch the ball every single time, because if we win, I'm a genius coach, right? So what can I do to make you more successful? And the key to each one of these questions is, after you ask the question, hush and listen to their answer. And no matter how stupid their answer is, or how menial or elementary or wrong or fundamentally flawed their answer is, it is still their answer. And it still matters to them. If the way to get under my skin used to be, what can I do to make you more successful? And they would say, give me more time off. And I would get upset. I'm like, God, no, if I can do without you for 6 weeks a year, I don't need you, kind of philosophy. And now I realize it doesn't matter if I disagree with that. That's their why. What can I do to make you more successful? Give me more training, give me more certifications, give me a better chair. Keep that director from coming in the room and bothering me because I don't work for him and he's just distracting me. Whatever the answer is, listen, write it down, and never weaponize it, right? We're going to go over that a couple of times. If you expect people to be vulnerable with you, when you ask them, what can I do to make you more successful? You must never weaponize their answer, right? No matter how it makes you feel. The second question I always ask is, what do you need out of this relationship? What do you need me to be for you? Do you need me to mentor you? Do you need me to just move out of your way because you're a CCIE and I don't even know what CCIE stands for? Okay. What do you need out of this? Do you need fulfillment from work? Do you want to just show up and be transactional? Do you want to talk about your dog for 10 minutes every morning because that you feel that camaraderie? What do you need out of this? In conjunction with that, or as a side item to that, is how do you want to be communicated with? And I think as PMs, when you start asking your resources, sorry for calling them that, but your project folks, hey, Mr. Technician who owes me 40 hours a week on site hooking up T1s at a plasma center in the middle of nowhere in Ohio, how do you want me to communicate with you? You want me to email you every day with a task list? You want me to tell you the horizon and trust you to get, in the right cardinal direction? Do you want, overt communication? Do you want empathetic? Tell me how to communicate with you. And look, one of the truths here is they're not going to know. They've never been asked. They're not going to know what the answer is. So then you have to talk them through it and say, well, you want me to bother you every hour because you got focus issues, or do you want me to leave you alone for 3 days and trust that you're going to be where I need you to be? And then the last question that I asked them, and I wish I had someone on here who had reported through me at some point, but what can I do better? And at this point is when you have to put on your big boy pants or big girl pants and listen. Because if you have created a trustful, safe environment for these folks, they might tell you. And if they're 24 years old and you're 53 and they're female and you're male and they're at their first job and you're at your 10th job and you spent 9 years in the Navy and have been to 50 countries and 48 states and you freaking know what you're talking about, and they start telling you what they think you can do better, you must listen, because they're probably right, at least from their perspective. I had a young lady who worked for me at the same company that Jared and I worked together at, who was not shy about answering this question for me. What can I do better? And then I better have a pen and paper because she's going to tell me. And she was right. You don't answer your emails. You don't answer when I call you. You expect me to adhere to timelines, but when I need something from you, I can't get a hold of you because you're too busy. I need you to address this. And let me tell you a secret. She was testing me, because the first time she did that and I didn't weaponize what she told me, and I didn't react in a defensive way, and I didn't turn it around on her and say, well, you should better do your damn job without my help. I didn't do that. I listened to this young lady who was well less than half my age, who had real feedback from me. And I can tell you, she saw me as a servant leader. She didn't know she did. She didn't know that term probably, but she believed that I was there for her best interest and trying to elicit an outcome by helping her get better versus any other method. So what can I do to make you more successful? What do you need out of this relationship? How do you want to be communicated with? And as you go periodically, what can I do better? And again, shut up and listen. And that's hard. Shutting up and listening to someone who you think doesn't know what they're talking about tell you why you don't know what you're talking about is hard. It's a lot like being a parent of a 20-year-old, 3-year pre-med student. She knows everything. And when I ask her, what can I do better as a dad? She has a list. So I have to listen because I asked the question. So some sub points here to this whole listening and communicating methodology. Be humble and listen. It's not about you. Nothing that happens in that person's life is about you. It's about them. And if you make it about them, you're on your way to being a servant leader. So listen from their perspective. I have a trick that somebody taught me years ago. When I'm talking to somebody, especially if we're having a conversation that I'm not comfortable with, I picture myself in their spot, in their chair, across my desk, across the table at lunch, wherever we are, across the conference room table. I picture myself in their chair and try to understand exactly, empathetically, what it is that they're going through, so I can listen from their perspective, right? And you guys, this is a theme, and I know I'm just throwing a million words out here, but we're gonna ask them what they need. We're going to listen to their answers. We're going to be humble when they tell us, and we're going to actively listen. We're going to make sure they know we're listening, make sure we know they're receiving what they're saying, and that we're going to take action on it if possible. We're going to take it under advisement. And then protect them. So if you picture this environment, I've got 200 people working for me. I've got about 17 vice presidents that I report to somehow. And all of them have, input into the team. Well, a lot of them want to walk right up to the team members and ask them things or task them with things. One of my hardest jobs is protecting the chain of command below me from the chain of command above me. That's part of servant leadership. Taking that hit, being strong enough to go to the type A personality chief operating officer who wants to walk into your workspace and talk to your individual contributors and knock them completely off axis. If you're a servant leader, you're not going to let that happen. And your people are going to see you not letting that happen, and they will trust you even more. Right? Jared knows what I'm talking about, right? I had a conflict where a leader, and he's not doing it to be malicious, it's just his way. He wanted to go talk to my direct reports and my indirect reports, and then come to me a week later and say, hey, why is all that crap I told your people to do not done? And I said, I don't have any idea what you're talking about. I told them, don't do anything you said. If you ask them to do something, they're to come to me. They're going to ask me if they should still be doing what I told them to do. I'm going to tell them yes, and they're going to go away. And he did not like that. And it took me, and look, again, he wasn't being malicious. It wasn't a shortfall on his part. It was just a different management style. But those people saw that from me. They saw me a couple of times in front of them say, hey, let's go over here and talk about this without knocking everybody off axis. I'm having a hard enough time keeping all the jackrabbits loaded on the back of the flatbed truck without you coming in here and shaking them up. So protect them using the chain of command. That's my little blurb there. Protect them using the chain of command. If they do something good, that flows right through you to your leadership, and you tell them, hey, Jared did something great and it made the team look good, made the client happy. Jared screws up and reboots the wrong server and shuts down the client's voice services for about 30 hours. I got it. I don't need you to know the name of the person. I don't need you to know the disciplinary action that I'm taking. I just need you to know that I'm handling, and this is what I'm doing to keep it from happening again. So, little anecdotal there, but here's a key. And for those of you who report through others and have direct reports or indirects that are on the other side of you from your leadership, if your leadership bucks at that concept, that they deal with you in a negative fashion, if they have negative feedback for your team, if they have ad hoc tasking for your team, they deal with you, and you are accountable to them. Your people are accountable to you. If they buck at that concept, I would take a close look at them as leaders. If they have a problem with you managing your team and being accountable for the performance of your team, either they don't trust you or they don't trust themselves, and both are problematic. So I will do my best not to talk too poorly about folks that are poor leaders, because it's just a lack of learning, right? It's not an intentional situation. But if your leadership doesn't trust you to manage your team or your projects, and they need to go past you and manage those individuals, those individual contributors, or those managers, directors, or whoever reports through you, and you try to head them off and they buck, take a look at them, because they're probably not there focused on your best interest. Any comments there? I see chats popping up, but they leave too fast for me to read them, so I'm not able to grab those. I've been talking for like 30 minutes. Anybody have any questions or comments or anything?
I haven't seen anything come through in the chat too much, but if any of y'all do have questions, just put them in the chat and then we'll interject.
So I promised some tactical things, how to do this, right? Things to write down. And if you only do these few things, then you'll be a couple of feet further down the path. The first one that I wrote down is follow through, and I call that walk the walk, right? Whatever you tell your people you are going to do or not do, you must follow through. If you so I tell everybody that reports to me, and I use these words: you can come in this office, you can close that door, and you can say anything to me that you need to say to me. Unless you tell me you're going to hurt someone else or yourself, and I have to go tell, HR, you can literally come in here and say any words you want to say to me. I won't weaponize them. I won't hold them against you. I will not divulge them to anyone else. You can be vulnerable in here. And I can't tell you how many grown men and women I've had in my office in tears over whatever's happened in their life, however they feel about their work or their fulfillment or whatever challenges they're carrying around on their back. For them to be able to come in that room in front of me, who, again, I'm not the easiest person sometimes to communicate with. I'm kind of out there, and I'm kind of a bigger guy, so sometimes it doesn't feel that easy. It's probably in the it's more than 50 over the years. And I've had grown human beings in my office in tears over something that they wanted my help with, but they wanted to share with me. And humans are not supposed to be that vulnerable naturally, right? So when they are vulnerable with you, whether they're giving you feedback or they're sharing their personal situation or whatever it is, you must hold their confidence, right? You must follow through on not weaponizing and not divulging that information. The second tactical step, when they fail, and look, Jared and I were talking about the outage that happened at my company here over the last 30 hours. That was an abject failure on the part of a human. We call it the avoidable mistake. Don't press the button. Don't press the button. Please don't press the button. And he presses the button and everything. There it goes. When they fail, the first question you must ask yourself, and I'm not kidding, did I do everything I could do to make them successful? If the answer is no, leave them alone. Go fix your problem. If the answer is yes, and it's really honest to God, yes, you must hold them accountable. Did they have the training, the processes, the procedures, the oversight, the permission, the authority to do all the things that I asked them to do? And when I asked them a week ago, what do you need in order to be successful? And they said, nothing, I'm good. And then they pushed the big red button. You must hold them accountable. Until that point, you can't. You must hold yourself accountable. Go fix the problem. Your management will struggle with that if you have weak leadership, because they're going to want a piece of somebody when they mess up. I want that guy suspended. I want him off the account. I want him fired. I want him in here right now. No, I didn't give him everything he needed to be successful. I missed the process. That person's not at fault here. I'm at fault. You deal with me. Now I'm going to go deal with him a little bit. So when they fail, ask yourself that question. Did you do everything you can do within reason to make them successful? If no, go look in the mirror. If yes, go hold them accountable. And part of being a leader is holding them accountable. So the third part, the third aspect is communicate. And communicate is a cool word. You see it on LinkedIn. You see it on, everybody says, oh, you just have to be a good communicator. Many do struggle with communicating. Here's the part they don't like: talking about the elephant in the room, right? If you think I didn't tell my entire team that I had a direct manager who would not allow me to allow them to do their work, and I told them that in an appropriate fashion, but I talked about it because they all knew. And I say, look, guys, you all hate when this guy does this. I know, I see you hate it. I'm going to deal with it. And you could just see the relief and, oh, he does know. Oh, thank God. Maybe he'll do something about it because it's driving me crazy. You must be a capable of and willing to discuss uncomfortable topics with them. But oversharing can be detrimental. Okay? If you are in a leadership position and you have information, they need to see that they need to see you as the duck on the water most of the time, right? Calm as you can be, paddling like hell underneath. They need to see that calmness. If you overshare, you can upset the apple cart, and we'll leave it at that. But if you have information that is stressing you out, budgets, timelines, layoffs, whatever it may be, don't unburden yourself to people on your team, because oversharing can really hurt things.
Bill, would you have the opportunity to address a question?
Of course.
Okay. This one comes from Tori Johnson. She just asked if there's any tips on navigating servant leadership in a virtual environment. She works from home, but her field teams are in the data centers doing the work. And then sometimes it's just feeling like there's a barrier to communicate with them.
So sure. So we were all, thrust. So 3 months after the plane crash, we all got to go home and be on quarantine for 2 years, right? So that was hit number 2 in March of 2020. So we all got thrust into this work from home situation. And for people who are like me, and I read people, right? I read body language, I read mannerisms. I do all these things as part of my active listening process. That becomes pretty difficult when you're looking at, a thumbnail size version of 4 out of 76 people. So I'm sorry, 5. I have 5 videos out of 76 people. I'll go back to empathizing with them and putting yourself in their chair. So they're also away from their manager. So if they're away from their manager and their leadership and maybe their cornerstone, how would that make you feel? And how would you want that to be addressed? What I would do, and again, I don't know your people, but people are people all over the world. I would go to them and say, hey, I'm a little worried about this. You know, I really want to be in tune with your daily life at work and your fulfillment and your, happiness at the job and how you feel about all these things, whether it's how much you just love data center work and plugging Cat5 and Ethernet cables in all day long and the fan noise and it's freezing cold. I know you love it, but I want to make sure you love it. So how can I best communicate with you, even though we have this distance barrier? And then listen to what they say. I can bet really almost no matter what kind of manager you have been, if you haven't done that before, one, they'll be very surprised when you ask. And two, if you give them that safe space, they'll tell you, look, it is frustrating when I can't get in touch with you and I can't just walk down the hall to find you because you're working in a different state. But I would ask them what they need out of it. Some of your more, crusty engineers are going to say, I love it. I hate people. And I'm happy there's no people around here and I never want to see you and I'm fine. But some of your other folks may really open up and say, look, it really does bother me and I'm struggling with this. I love people and now I don't get to see people. And thank you so much for asking. And, I've been wanting to, so this is, I'll share a quick story. So I did that with somebody. I had a young man who worked for me and I could see that he was struggling something. It was before the crash. Like a lot of people that in my circle, we talk about things before the crash and after the crash. So we'll talk about that. But after the crash, I was a lot less aware of what was going on around me because I was dealing with my situation. But before, I could see this young man coming to work and I just see him. I could see his spirit shrinking. I could just see him, whatever weight he was carrying, he was just down and he was sad or he was tired or whatever it was. And I would go to him and I would say, I don't want you to feel like this when you come to work. Whatever you have that's on your back when you walk in this door, I don't want this for you. Help me figure this out. And it took me 5 or 6 times of that. And the kid just broke down in my office one day, just absolutely finally just broke his defenses. And he started being upset. And he says, I hate coming here every day. I hate it. I want to be, and I forget what the job he wanted. It was at the same company. It wasn't, I want to go be I don't know, I'll go open a Vegas show or something. It was something real. He said, but I didn't know how to bring it up to you. I can't do this job anymore. He was trying to manage a knock, right? He was a 24/7, always on call, just bees stinging you all the time sort of role. He said, I can't do it. And I didn't know how to tell you. And I said, well, like this, but about 6 weeks ago is what I would have wanted. But you never know what somebody's going to say when you just put yourself out there and say, I think you might feel this way, or if I were in your place, I would feel this way. Do you feel that way, and how can I help? Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely, Bill. Thanks for answering that. It's giving me some ideas to take back to the team. So can't wait to apply that.
Yeah, and look, I will open this up too. If anybody is not connected to me on LinkedIn, please jump on and connect with me and then message me and say, hey, I'm about to have this conversation with my team. How would you handle this? I love that kind of stuff. I'm writing a book on it. Not very well, apparently, because it's taking me forever. But I absolutely love that type of conversation. If that's all I could do every day is help solve interaction problems with leaders and their people, that's all I would do. So please message me and say, hey, we talked about this, or I wanted to ask this, and I have a situation. How would you handle it? And maybe I'm wrong, but I'll give you my 2 cents worth. So thank you for that. So the last little thing that I write down every time I do this is it's okay for them to see that you're human. I don't care if they report to you. And again, I'm assuming most folks here are PMs, but you may have directs and indirects. It's okay for them to see that you're not perfect, because when they see that you're flawed, it'll be more okay for them to admit to you that they're flawed. If you make a mistake, own up to it. Do like me and put that sucker on a banner and walk around the building with it, because I'm trying to take all your power away because I don't want you to embarrass me. But I'll tell you a real quick story. So I was standing up what we call a Net Promoter Score program at my last company where Jared and Dean and Jonathan and I worked. And it was in a system that we had all of our tickets in. And I built this little test email and it said Bill's test email. That was the subject. And it was supposed to, I put my own email address in there, my personal email address off site. So it would go out of this, whatever you call it, the firewall. And I hit send and it delayed till the next morning by design. So the next morning I get into work at 6:30, whatever time it was. And I had an email from an ex-client that I hadn't talked to in 4 years. And he said, hey, I got this weird email from you about Bill's test email. Really? So in my little test, which is supposed to be my own little world, the ConnectWise system, and it's ConnectWise. And if anybody wants to know what not to go buy, don't buy ConnectWise, sent my test email to 10,750 discrete email addresses for current and post and old clients, ex-clients of that company. 10,750. I will never forget that number. So I started getting emails back. So what did I have to do? I had to get up and walk to the COO's office. I reported to him at the time and say, hey, I just accidentally sent an email to 10,750 folks with from GDS. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. From my old company. And the subject was Bill's test email or Bill's test NPS, whatever it was. And he said, well, that sucks. And that was it. So he said, bet you won't do that again. I said, no, won't do it. I'm not going to do that again. But word got out. I'm sure Jared told everybody. Word got out and I owned it. So I got to go and send an email to my team and said, hey guys, this is what I did. Watch out, don't press that button. But when you get these calls from clients or if you get questions from clients, yes, it's an actual email. No, we don't care if they actually click on it because it didn't go anywhere. It's not like I got a whole bunch of results from my NPS test. It just went out there and bothered 10,700.
So you were that guy?
That was me. Hey, hence
I
the word.
I didn't know it was you that did it.
Thanks, man. That was me. I'm famous. So anyway, own your mistakes, because what they got to see in me, they learned two lessons. One from a very good manager who was our COO at the time, who's still the COO now. He let me own it, but he did not make it worse, right? He supported me through it. He knew how embarrassed I was. He handled it very, very well. So they got to see him being a good leader, and they got to see me being humble enough to go, hey guys, it was me, I did it. I'm not making light of it, but I'm also not trying to hide from it. So they got to see two lessons, hopefully. So thanks for that. So it's at this point, so I do have a good leader, bad leader story to tell you, but it's at this point that I usually talk about the bad and the ugly about trying to be a servant leadership or a servant leader using these concepts. The ugly about it is it can't take a back seat to the business. As much as you want to be a good person, as much as you want to look out for your fellow humans who work with you and for you and around you, the business trumps all. So you may have to make difficult decisions. You may have to support and implement difficult decisions that others have made. So being a servant leader and being a human first leader doesn't excuse you from the difficult part of sometimes being a manager, and that the business wins, the project wins, people lose at times. The other difficult part about it is it's very hard to quantify. So non-servant leaders or managers, a lot of times they need quantification, right? And I guess we all do at some level, but is meeting the budget my measure? Is, knock service tickets being 2 minutes or less acknowledged? What's the measurability? When you say you're interviewing me and you say, well, what are you good at? I'm good at being a servant leader. They don't know what that is. They can't quantify that. They don't know what that means. If you say, I'm good at building teams that meet or exceed all business measurabilities, now you're talking a language that somebody can understand. So it's not a management style as much as it is a management philosophy and tool. You still have to focus on the business. It's misunderstood, especially by folks that are older. You know, they've never been exposed to that concept where you actually listen to your workers, right? Look at the poor railroad workers right now all over the country, and you think there's a servant leader dealing with them? They want 10 days off a year, and you know they went and gave them one. So, you know, they're not being treated like humans. So you try to go to those railroad workers or railroad managers and say, this is what servant leadership is. They couldn't conceptualize it because they see the folks as cogs in a machine. So if you try to do this, it may be misunderstood to a level. And it's a long game, right? It takes work. Trust takes work. You know, you get a new dog, or take a dog from the pound and you bring it home and you want to treat it well, but it doesn't trust you. It'll take time to build that trust through vulnerability, and then the lack of weaponizing of the vulnerability, and then additional vulnerability. I challenge you though, if you do this right for a year and you don't see, one, a lower stress level on your part as a manager, project manager, and two, better performance by the teams that you manage, I'll be very surprised. And then with any management, any human-centric tasking, failure is not an option, it's an eventuality, right? You are going to fail. You're going to have people who you are vulnerable with, who you think you have set up to be successful, and you've dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's, and they are nails. And then they're going to push the big red button anyway. And you will have failed, because when your people fail, by def, you are failed, right? You have failed along with them. So you're going to fail. The good news is, if it's done right, it just works. My son, who's 24, he works for a competitor as an IT engineer, asked me, what do you do all day? And my honest to God answer to him is, I work my ass off to make other people better at their jobs. And he has no idea what the heck that means. He's like, so they pay you to help other people do their job better? Yep. Oh, that's stupid. And he walks off, he goes off in his room. But he's living in my house. I'm not living in his house. So one of us is doing stuff right. It's fulfilling. I love it. I love it when it works. I love it when somebody comes up to me 5 years after they worked for me and said, you weren't the easiest guy to work for. You're very demanding, but man, did you set me up for success? Man, did you help me to the next step by being hard on me, but focusing on me as a person and as a worker instead of a piece of a disposable piece. And you kind of end up with a network of people that believe in you for whatever that's worth to you. It's worth a lot to me, not from a monetary perspective, but it kind of means that I'm doing things right. There's people out there that would sort of stick up for this philosophy and tell folks, hey, it's a little maybe non-standard, but it does work for them, and it's worked for others. So I love it. Anything else right now? I got a couple of cool. Okay, let me ask this. How many folks in the room, and I guess we can raise hands or just think about it, have had a leader who you consider, well, I guess we've all had the worst, but how many of you had a leader who you could say their name out loud right now as by far the worst leader you've ever come in contact with? And I'll tell you some traits of these leaders. The first one that I can't stand, and I try to stay away from this, is transactional, right? A transactional relationship is, I give you $1, you do $1 work. If you come here tomorrow, I'll give you another $1, and you do $1's work. And if you don't show up tomorrow, I don't really give a crap, and I get to keep my $1 and I win. That sort of transactional leadership is problematic for me. So my worst leader ever, and I can tell you his name, like it was yesterday. Like I worked for him yesterday. I can tell you that I worked at Shoney's when I was 14 years old, Shoney's big boy, and I still haven't had a worse leader than this guy was. He wasn't my manager at Shoney's. Completely transactional, disconnected from his people, completely devoid of empathy. Great guy, wonderful person outside of work. No grasp of anything, no grasp that anyone had any need for fulfillment outside of continued employment. I have permission to show up here tomorrow was his leadership style. And we should be happy to have that our card works in the morning when we show up at work. And that's just not, it's not a way to elevate anyone. We're lucky to have a job. And here's the result. He alienated and lost all of his A players. Every single A player on that team left within 6 months. And now he's got C players and a lackluster team, poor customer satisfaction, employee turnover is high. And look, I don't blame him. This guy, he and I had a relationship outside of work. I had a camper that I stayed in over in Lafayette instead of trying to stay in a hotel. It's pouring down rain outside, and he calls me and he says, "Hey, I'm under your camper. I thought I saw something dripping." This is a 60-something-year-old man who's under my camper and doing a good thing, right? Being a good human. It's not an indictment of him as a person. It's just a management style that I don't think is effective, right? So I see a lot of chats coming through. So we've had people that have had leadership that's caused that level of dissatisfaction. I guess my lesson is don't be that guy. Don't be that woman, right? Don't be that leader. Be somebody who's going to have empathy and who's going to care about the fulfillment of their team members, because the longer they stay with you, the better they get at their job and the better you are at yours. All right, so let's talk about the best leader. This is my last story. I was 23. I was in the US Navy. I was overseas in Keflavik, Iceland in the wintertime. And I had about 10 people that reported to me, and I was a terrible manager. No idea what I was doing. I just managed because I outranked them. They have to do what I say, make them do it. And I had a female senior chief who was my boss. Now you think about this, it's 1992. And this lady in the military in the 90s, early 90s, is an E8. So she's the second highest enlisted rank that you can be. And she's, spent her life on ships, and she is a no kidding sailor. And I worked for her. And, I didn't know how special that was at the time to work for someone back in the 90s who's truly a servant leader and who obviously in a male dominated industry had killed it. I wish I had her guidance now, but I was doing a bad job, and she pulls me into her office, and I was terrified because she could have just whipped my ass. I was scared of her. And she sat me down in her chair, and I will never forget. This is 30 years ago. So I was 23, so it was 30 years ago. And she said, "I need you to do better." And I said, "Yes, ma'am." And she said, "How can I help that happen?" And look, I'll get emotional talking about that because she didn't have to do that for me. She could have said, "You do this or you go to jail, or you do this or you get these." This lady who had no training in how to be a servant leader whatsoever, sat me down and said, "How can I help you get better?" And I believe that's why she was so successful in the military when she shouldn't have been. All the deck was stacked against her. So she looked out for her people. I actually got into an altercation with another officer. You notice a theme here. I cause a lot of my own problems, but I got in an argument with an officer, and she went to what we call captain's mast in the Navy and stuck up for me because she said I had potential. I couldn't see it. Nobody else could see it, but she did that for me, and she didn't have to do it. She protected me from her chain of command. She listened to us. She pushed us hard. She actually made us work out. So we would show up, and in the military, once you get out of boot camp and everything, in the Navy at least, and Dean, you get to be quiet right now with all of this. In the Navy, we don't have to do exercises, right? We just go to work. We would show up, and she would make us exercise in the snow in Iceland because she thought it was the right thing to do. I will never forget her. She put herself out there for me and probably started me on a much better path than I was, as far as interacting with coworkers, as far as trying to be a leader. Best manager I ever had. And I strive to be like her whenever I can. So that's really it. Kind of got off track there at the end, but if you notice, the best leader, I didn't talk about her physical prowess, her ability to do push-ups. I didn't talk about her technical ability. I didn't talk about how good of a programmer she is, or that she's a great lawyer or a project manager. I talked about how she treated me. And that's really all we're doing here. Listen to them, stick up for them, advocate for them, expect a lot from them, work to equip them to be successful, and just sit back and watch the success happen for about 13 seconds. And then somebody else does something stupid and then you have to go deal with it. But I'm passionate about this. I'm actually, as ridiculous as it sounds for the folks who really know me, I actually am writing a book about this. It's important. And if you want to continue to manage people in 2023 and beyond with the people that we're raising right now and what they expect out of relationships, you better do something different, or you're going to end up with a bunch of churn, which is problematic. So again, please reach out to me on LinkedIn if you have a question. If I said something you didn't agree with, I'd love to talk about that. I mean, I love that, back and forth. So
We do actually have one from Courtney Bear. She said she was just revisiting an old HBR article on what great managers do, and it discusses capitalizing your direct report strengths. How do you balance doing that while helping them build up their weaknesses?
Man, that's a good question. So everybody knows what they're not good at, right? Most of us focus on the things we're worried about not doing good enough at. So I mentioned I'm a baseball umpire. I go out on the baseball field. I know that I'm good calling balls and strikes. I have no fear of doing it. I have no worry about my performance. On the bases, I don't think I'm that good, right? I'm not as good on the bases as I am on the plate. And baseball umpire evaluation is as harsh as you can imagine. We get sent videos after our games that show us, that grade us and show us the little box, and then any replays that we had, if they get overturned, it's a big deal. But I know what I'm bad at, right? Or I'm probably harder on myself about the things that I consider myself not good at. So I don't need somebody to point them out to me. What I need them to do is build on what I am good at and find some kind of parallel between what I am good at and what I need to improve on. So here's an example. Man, Bill, you're really good on the plate. I love your timing. Your zone is very consistent. What process are you using mentally to stay focused on the plate so well? And maybe once we figure that out, we can leverage that on the bases. So it's kind of a sneaky way to say, hey, you're kind of good at this over here. You're not killing it over here. What can we do to take this strength and overcome this potential weakness? But it's not a game, right? You can't fake them. If they know you're just making up something that they're not good at, or that doesn't really matter, just to try to get to that comment about their weakness, you probably should just go and talk about their weakness, which I've had too, right? I've had guys come up to me, man, you suck on the bases. We'll put you back on the plate. You're not doing so great out here. I don't prefer it that way. I prefer a little more gentle approach than that. But so find their strengths, and maybe whoever's asking the question, maybe throw a strength and a weakness out there that this person has, and we'll see if we can maybe massage that. How do you balance being vulnerable but not oversharing? Okay, how do you balance being vulnerable without oversharing? Really a hard thing to do. So my oversharing story is, I was working for a company that was going out of business. I didn't know we were going out of business, but I had my suspicions. So I was also friends with the CFO. So I'm upstairs one night late at night at the office working, and I noticed that his light's on. So I go walk down to his office and I say, "Hey, how's it going?" He said, "Oh, you know, I'm stressed." And I said, "Well, look, how are we looking? You know, runway wise, how are we looking? Are we going to make it through this?" He goes, 50-50. I didn't really want that answer. I wanted him to say, "Hey man, we're working hard. I got a lot of confidence. We're going to get past this." Because 50-50, you just told me I can flip a coin and be unemployed in 6 weeks, right? I consider that an overshare. I think he should have said something a little different. I guess when I talk about vulnerability, I don't mean the commercial right now where the insurance guy is trying to get people to be personal with him and give them their personal information. The guy's like, "I draw mustaches on people." I don't need you to share downstream as much as let them see it if you make a mistake. Or look, a lot of times I've started conversations with, "You know, I struggled with this for a long time. I see maybe you're struggling with this. And the way that I can identify that you're having that problem is I've had that problem for many years." And maybe that's the end of that conversation. And then a couple of weeks later, or you know, some period later, you mention it again. You say, "You know, hey, I was thinking about our conversation about, you know, insert weakness here. And I remember that I did this in order to try to overcome that. You think that would work for you? Or maybe that'll work for you." And you just hand that little tidbit and bounce. So I guess vulnerability doesn't mean telling them private things about yourself or inner thoughts or inner fears or all that's not necessary, except that they're aware that you have them, right? You're not some stoic Easter Island statue sitting in your office with no feelings, that you have vulnerabilities and you're a real person and you deal with real things just like they deal with. I will share this too. This is sort of a non sequitur, but when you're in a position where you either you have the suspicion or you have the knowledge that you make significantly more money than someone on, you know, in your organization, complaining about everyday things that you have trouble with as a person who makes a lot more money than they probably do is one of the most off-putting things that they can hear you do, right? And I've learned that over the years, and I've never been that guy, right? I don't have a lot of things. I don't have a lot of toys. I don't buy exorbitant gifts. And so I don't have these first world problems, you know, "Oh, my Starbucks was late this morning." I'm not buying a $5 cup of coffee, so it's not gonna be late. But I've had that feedback given to me, like what is one of the most hurtful or frustrating things? It's lacking awareness about how your vulnerability might make them feel. You know, "Oh, my Bentley's in the shop this week. What a pain." Yeah. That's relatable. So I guess the way that I would summarize that is allow them to know that you are vulnerable, that you have flaws, that you have these real world things going on, but not exactly what those things are, because they will weaponize them, right? If there is a way to weaponize something to get something that a person needs from their leadership, especially at the line level where they're very transactional historically, you don't want to overshare like that. Makes sense? I just figured out how to pull up the chat. Meeting's over.
I got a question. So I have a young employee who has tremendous potential, but her ups and downs emotionally, I haven't figured out what's going on there, but like she can turn it on at the end of the month whenever deadlines are needed, right? She can turn it on and it's pretty fascinating, right? Like she's really, really good. But I've heard through others that she thinks she's worth more money. And so she's equating everything to money. And I'm trying to figure out a way to approach her without even letting her know that I know that she's thinking about money. Because right now I'm so frustrated with her that like I made a comment earlier, like I appreciated what you said, because I don't think I've gone to her and been like, hey, what can I do? I've never asked myself the question, hey, have I done everything in my power to help this young lady succeed? I haven't done that. So I've been asking myself that throughout your presentation, but I don't even know how to approach the money thing, because I'm just like,
so
if she brought up money, I would be angry. It's be like, well, you're not even doing your job now to your full potential.
Okay, perfect. So if I was in this situation, so first off, I would ask myself, have I set expectations with her in a way that she understands what good and bad look like? Not that I understand, because I have a very specific communication style. Does she know when she is succeeding and failing? And I'm talking about at the micro level, this task, am I doing it right or am I doing it wrong? What's my measurability? What am I being measured against? Who are my peers? Am I being measured against them? If you can say yes to all, if she will say yes to all of those questions based on your guidance and feedback and documentation, and the answer is yes, that she's passing or exceeding, then have the money conversation, because she should get paid more money. If the answer is no, she should have every bit of that information at her disposal. She shouldn't have to wonder for 1 minute, well, am I doing well? Am I doing poorly? They want to talk about money. And like I say, I will talk about the 30 and under. I have 5 children, 4 of them are under 30. So I'm qualified. They think they're worth more money when they learn how to walk, right? Hey, I should get paid more money because I existed for another year. So you will have to deal with that. Old school, older folks have been around a while. We think, every 2 years I'm going to talk about money, but during that 2-year period leading up to that, adding or asking about more money, I need to have added incremental more value in order to be able to have that conversation. Folks that are under 30 these days, they don't see that. I got a participation trophy my whole damn life. Where's my participation trophy? You're going to have to facilitate it from her perspective, though. So make up a name, right? Hey, Johnny, do you understand everything that's being asked of you every day? And do you understand what pass fail looks like in every aspect? Is there anything that you don't know that answer to? Find that answer, get it documented, get that person to acknowledge that they know all of the stuff that they're supposed to do, and what pass looks like, and what an A looks like, B looks like, C looks like. One, that probably will light a fire under them, because they might not know. They might think their job is to hang around until the 4th week and go, holy crap, we got to go, find $10,000 in billable invoices that we didn't know we had every month. If they think that's their job, man, they're probably killing it. And they brought in $10,000 in 3 days last week. You should pay them, $2 more an hour. Is that mentality? So set the expectations, get buy-in and acknowledgement that they're understood, and then measure against them. If she's passing them, set her down before you even ask her and say, look, I realize that because you've been exceeding your deliverables, that we should probably pay you more money. So let's have that if I were you, I'd be wondering about that. Are you wondering about that? Yes, you are. Okay, let's talk about it. Listen, I know you're probably worrying about money or looking at money. You've been here for a year. I appreciate your tenure. But unfortunately, you're missing 6 out of your 10 deliverables and your measurables every week. So let's talk about the improvement plan. And once we get past the improvement plan, then we can have the money conversation. And they'll appreciate that. Look, if they're any level of a grown-up, emotionally, they'll see, oh, okay, he's doing his job. But look, it's the same story when firing people. If they're surprised, you failed. So I'm glad that's Stephen, right? Stephen, chat me on LinkedIn. I put my profile in there. Just grab it and message me, and we can keep talking.
I already tried to connect, so I sent your thing during the meeting.
I had to silence my LinkedIn for this. Awesome. Anything else?
I've got a curiosity question. Now, we've just got a few minutes. How long have you been working on the book, and how many different case studies are you did? Like, do you have the outline of chapters on certain?
So I learned this tool when I was at my last job. Bob Miller actually told me about mind maps. Didn't know about mind
Yeah.
maps. And
Yeah.
Jared, I use them a lot. But so I have a mind map of my book that is just, it's a beautiful mind level, just lunacy all in this mind map. And then I have a chapter outline, and I have about 150,000 words written. So I did talk
Cool,
to.
as you might have some volunteers here for different case studies.
Heck yeah.
So,
I need to know what problems are we encountering, and then how to deal with them. What I'm trying not to do is write another Simon Sinek leadership book and top 7 ways to be a good servant leader. I think that's bull crap. I think it's more about talking to people and talking about real stuff than following some formula, which is why Simon's going to make a couple $1 million this year and I won't make anything but on my book. But yes, I'm writing that, and I'm writing a fiction novel about a cyber attack for political reasons. So that's much harder to do than write a business book.
very cool. Very cool. We'd love to stay abreast of that process. So, because that to me is interesting, just tying in the project management with the leadership and the creativity too. So that's a good outlet.
Well, either it'll be announced in 6 months that I'm going to try to self-publish it, or it'll be announced that I sold the rights to it for $1 to somebody and they get it off my desk. Because at this point, I hate this book.
I've definitely heard from a lot of people. I've heard it's a very tough process to do.
What shocked me, and I tried to make a Gantt chart type thing out of it, was I have 7 in my novel, my fiction book. I have 7 storylines, right? Quasi parallel. They're asynchronous at times, but there's 7 storylines, and in one, 3 of the 7 are intertwined, and then 2 and 2, right? So you have 7 micro stories, 3 sub micro stories, and then 1 macro story, and they all have to gel, and it's impossible.
Yeah.
It's so hard, because I'm like, wait, what was, and everybody's named in the book, everybody's named members of my family. So, because that way I can find and replace when it's time to actually write it. But okay, what was so-and-so doing on that afternoon when this other thing was happening? And no, wait, that person was at their grandmother's house when the second event. Oh, it's so hard. Like and ghostwriters chat me all the time on LinkedIn and say, hey, for $5,000, we'll write it for you. Like, sounds pretty good, actually.
Well, you'll learn a lesson through the exercise of so hopefully.
I learned more. I
Hopefully
learned so much respect for people who write these books. I mean, they're hundreds of thousands of words long, and they just flow. We're talking to my wife last night about Yellowstone. I love that show, right? And I kept telling her, how amazing is it that these people can write this story? Never mind the acting and the casting, but the story itself has so many twists and turns, and somebody just wrote that. It's unbelievable.
Definitely. That's going to be challenging too, when they don't know if they're going to be renewed, and then they're in the hot seat, and then they have to do it on a timeline.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. I know it's mostly me talking, which I don't prefer. But I do enjoy talking about this topic. And again, please reach out. Obviously, I never turn down a connection request, and then we can chat. So awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. This has been awesome.
Oh, this is great. This was
Thanks,
a lot
Bill.
of fun, man. It was great to see
Appreciate
you
the
again.
invite, Jared.
Enjoyed seeing all our friends join us. So yeah, thank all of you for joining Bill, joining us. Bill, thanks again for great content. This was a blast. Y'all have a great one.
Dean and Jonathan, I'll talk to you guys later too, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Good to see you today.
Bye,
Happy
guys.
birthday again.
Thank you.
All right. See y'all next month. Thanks.
Take care, everyone.